Yeah, can you hear me all? Yeah, welcome to the main meeting. I'm going to ask Tim to kick proceedings off, if I may, and then we will get into the meeting proper. Over to Tim.
Tēnā tātou I tēnei mai whakatau mai ki tēnei hui o te poari o IAWAI. Ki te pia ki a koutou ka hana mai ki te tautoko o te kōrero me mo tō whakaaro, mo te whakapaipai o te wai Māori, o tātou hāpuri, o te rohe o kaunihira o Kirikiriroa, me te kaunihira o Waikato, ki te mea ki a koutou, ki te mea tuatai ki te ato e nei ngā mea katoa, pai Māori, ki te mea ki ngā mate haere ki te pō, ki te mea ki a kui ngā waihono i te pō. Te whare kai hui ariki, mauri o tātou katoa. Te timata o tātou hui, he kare ki a tātou. He kore, he hono re, he kore ki te ato, he maunga rongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. I te ato ho mai ki a matai, te ka me te wairua, mo tēnei kapapu, mo tēnei rā. Tutu whakamau ki a tīna, haumi e hui e tai. Kia ora, Kevin.
Thank you. So we have no public presentations today, so we're going to get straight into the business. There are no apologies. Are there any declarations of interest?
Just one from me, Kevin. Just the addition that I'm also a member on the Waikato Regional Water Safety Governance Board with our other partner organisations, Hamilton City, Waikato District Council, Swim Waikato, Water Safe New Zealand. So I thought I would just add that as well, since we do a lot of work in the waterways that cover IAWAI.
Thank you. So just acknowledging they're now up to date in these minutes, but started in April with ITM. And Central District's water started first of it. It actually says 17 March, but I think officially it's 1 April. We didn't start in Central District's water until then. So just our first meeting since advising of those. Thank you.
And likewise, I started on the 13th of April with Tauranga and Western Bay, and that's in the record as well. I'm also showing as an advisor to Marlborough Waters. That's actually come to an end now. So they are moving to a board situation. So they'll be under recruitment now, just for the record, that's the case. Okay, let's move on to confirmation of minutes. Tim and Dave, are you happy with the minutes, or do you have any amendments? Okay.
All good, thank you.
Okay, good. No public forum. On to the Chief Executive's report. Peter.
Thank you.
I don't think I need to labour through this, but given the volume of other stuff that's on the agenda, the things we chose to highlight here, we're really focused on the change process. We've now had over 150 of the staff that are transferring work through a series of workshops, which are the start of our culture building and change process with them. That's been focused on what they really value about their current working environment with council, what they want to leave behind, what they want to take with them in terms of those things, and then how that will translate into behaviours. So we'll have another series of engagements prior to 1 July to take that, feed it back, and continue to work through how we express the behaviours and expectations we have within IAWAI. Also want to acknowledge the opportunity that we had to engage around Te Ture Whaimana and to visit Taupiri and Hopu Hopu. That was a really significant event and opportunity, not just to learn, but to engage with the leadership teams from both Hamilton City and Waikato District. And I suppose my observation is we provide an opportunity for Hamilton and Waikato to work together in ways that they haven't. So continuing to encourage that will be helpful, particularly in the current context of local government amalgamation discussions. We'll talk separately about where we're at in the establishment process, but my sense is we are in a good place with, 38 working days to go until we go live. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Peter. Any questions from Dave or Tim?
Not really a question, just backing in the comment that you just made. Very pleased as a director to see the ELT learning and the engagement into the community, really important for our organisation. So fantastic work, very supportive of that. And then just as a general point, it sort of worries me a little bit, and I was just about to look for the exact example, but it worries me a bit about some of the length of the papers, Peter, and potentially the duplication that you and your team, are going through by writing a policy, and then there's analysis of things, and it just felt like a bit of a double up. So probably a funny sort of minor criticism or comment to get, because it's probably not a criticism, but actually there's maybe more information and more repetition than might be required for us as a board. So, the team is so busy, and then if there is some of that, duplication perhaps as we get through, there's if there's a policy as a vote of one, very happy just to see the policy, a one-pager outline from the team, and then here's the policy, and go from there. So just as a comment. Thank you.
And I suppose my response is it's still a work in progress as to how we move from what everyone is used to in local authorities and that practice to what IAWAI needs to look like. And I'll be the first to say we've still got a way to go, and in many respects, because we're still doing the lift and shift of existing local authority policies in order to streamline the establishment process, it's going to be the next generation that will be more streamlined than that. But appreciate the feedback, and we'll see what we can do.
And I think the lion's share of it was with the water services strategy and the appendices, really. But it'd be nice, wouldn't it, not to have 148, to have 50, or something of that order.
Yeah, I'm really not worried about the length. If it's 400 pages because the team need to provide 400 pages to the board, so be it. If it just felt like there was some additional words that maybe they didn't need to pull together, that's all, because it all has to be edited and it has to be viewed and et cetera, et cetera. And again, personally, if it's in an appendices, well, then as a director, I still got to read it. So, it doesn't really matter whether it's in the report or the appendices. It's just that. But thank you for your response.
The alternative answer is that I'm sorry I gave you the long version. I didn't have time to write the short version.
Yes, and I get it, and now perhaps in 6 months I might raise, why haven't we got more detail on this? So I appreciate it's probably a no-win. But anyway, intending to be a helpful commentary, backing in the great work that's being done. So apologies if it didn't quite come across that way.
Tim?
Thanks, Peter. Just wanted to acknowledge, the visibility of our ELT within our communities and also within our council as well, and within Waikato Tainui. I try and get out into the community and just show our face and support the work that IAWAI does. And I think it's quite important that that visibility is sustained over the course of our operations.
Just 2 questions from me on the staffing front. It's sort of covered a little bit in Gavin's paper as well in terms of where we've got to. And I mean, from the conversations we've had, I think it's going pretty well. But I just wondered whether you've given any thought to maybe doing some staff survey type stuff. A good time to do a baseline soonish, I would have thought, and to do it on a regular basis going forward. And the other one is just to unpack a little bit where we've got to, because I think we've had very high acceptance rates so far. Where are we on that in terms of staff accepting offers and all that sort of stuff?
So everyone that has been offered a job for transfer is now signed up, except one. We're still working through a couple of points of negotiation. Of those whose roles within the council was more than half water that have been offered a job, everyone is coming. Is the bottom line. So there will be no redundancies or resignations or loss of work as a consequence of that process. The next step that we're in at the moment is we're seeking to fill about 40 vacancies that are made up of bits of jobs that there isn't a clear alignment between the role in either of the previous council and the role that we need. We've had well over 130, I think, applications for those 40 roles. We're working through that. A significant number of them will be filled by internal appointments from the two councils. There are some that are that will be filled from externally. And so there are a couple that are more challenging in terms of how we fill them. So in for instance, the finance area, we've still got some work to do to be confident we've got the right caliber of candidate for what we're trying to achieve. So there are some vacancies that, at this stage are unlikely to be filled for 1 July because that relies on completing an external appointment and those sorts of things. But by and large, we're in, I think, a quite comfortable space with respect to the staffing for 1 July, and certainly for all of our ongoing operations and the day-to-day running of things, everybody's locked and loaded and in place.
That's really good. And on the staff survey side, have you given any thoughts to that?
Passing thought. That's something that we will need to come back to. Both councils do regular staffing surveys. What I haven't figured out is where we fit in the time schedule of that and their ability to piggyback off it.
Yeah, because it would be quite a good time over the next, staff settle in to do a baseline, wouldn't it? Keep it really simple, some sort of like pulse type survey rather than some all singing, all dancing big survey. Okay, cool.
Sorry, I wasn't sure. I'll bring it in now.
Yeah,
if
go
that's
for
okay. Looking at, I'm not sure which weather pattern it is, and I know we're not operational till 1 July, but that's pretty close now, and we're going to cover the report. But how might we be placed, and if there is a dry winter and a dry spring, and what does that look like? And I'm sure Keith would be able to just pull that out. But otherwise, very happy to leave it until future meetings. But as we're starting to think more about the operational of it and go, how might that affect us or not?
Andrew, you must have been here many times before.
Yeah.
My reporter's probably the best person to answer for the operations, but having worn a operational hat in the past, we actively monitor lake levels in Taupo. I did check a few weeks ago, it's incredibly high for this time of year, and it's uncharacteristically high. So I think the net view is positive, in fact, potentially more positive than usual. In addition to that, the operations team are currently reviewing all of their water demand management plans across the business as well. So that's probably all I can offer, but it's a net positive prospect at this point.
Thank you. Sure, it's a watching brief as we
Yep.
get into normal.
And there are established ways of moving through levels of scarcity and what needs to happen with that, which are all ready to roll out as would be needed with the review that's currently happening. And the river flow would need to get very low before it presents us with a fundamental problem of ability to take. But yeah, there are risks. Keith, do you want to just fill in from the Waikato side?
So I agree with everything that's been said. There's a very good planning program in place in relation to water demand, seasonal fluctuations, and water restrictions in terms of the levels that we go through. We do follow the all of Waikato process that's set out in CoLab in respect to the water restrictions. So it's not just in isolation. It's everybody that's on the AWA takes the same course. I guess from a Waikato perspective, we have the Ricky Springs, which is available to us for Raglan, so it's not completely AWA based, but the majority of it is. And I agree with Andrew in terms of the water storage looking forward. Current water storage in Lake Taupo is very high, so we shouldn't see any impact of drought for a little while.
So if we just tease out Raglan a little bit further, very, very high peak summer demand for water use.
Yeah,
and a spring that is the source of the water, there are limits.
There are limits on the spring. It hasn't yet met those limits historically. Where it suffers, to be fair, this has nothing to do with water restriction so much, but seismic event is its weakness. It gets turbidity very quickly in any shake, and we saw it in Christchurch and in Picton, and the Kaikoura, yeah. So that's its vulnerability.
Is we're really well prepared at this point, which is good, but we'll keep an eye on it. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Let's note the Chief Exec's report and move on to Gavin and the establishment programme.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So obviously you've got the report in front of you. I guess the first thing I'd start with is Peter's talked about the staff. One of the key things with the staff is being able to pay them. So what we have got is Hamilton City's upgraded its system. That's functioned well for Hamilton City. The IAWAI system has been set up. We obviously have to do the testing, but we're very confident that it will work. And the fallback position is if it doesn't work, all being paid through the HCC system. So they're part of it. So pretty confident about that. In terms of the other digital systems, there's a lot of work going on in that space, particularly around the billing at both councils. We're on track with that, expecting WDC to be ready by the end of this month. Hamilton City is a bit ahead of that, I think. One of the challenges we have, and that's in the space of the digital systems, is reporting. So that's something we need to do some more work on. All the technological stuff has been done, but it's actually we now need to populate the data, and so that's the next piece we need to do. Where in terms of transfer of assets, that's fairly straightforward. The land, we will have I'm going to suggest the freehold land transferred by the 1st of July. That will be done. The land we classified as deferred or in other categories will follow later. More work will need to be done on that. The contracts we've started, and we have novated some contracts, but there's a lot more to do, much more in the Hamilton City space than Waikato District space. And we're working through and prioritising that as well. In terms of consents, designations, notices of requirements, that's all in hand. Easements is really, we have a plan in place to deal with easements, but we'll deal with that, or I'll rephrase that. IAWAI will deal with that after the 1st of July as they arise or as they need to address them. So we're developing a clear process as to how to do it. The difficulty with easements is there are so many, particularly in the Waikato district context, some of which will not be a problem for IAWAI, but it's dealing with the ones that come up is really the main thing. The other things I just wanted to comment on, Mr. Chair, is in terms of the budget we're operating against, we have reduced the contingency, some that we had allowed in that budget. We're looking at coming in under budget around about $800,000. I suspect it could be more than that. It would still require a lot more expenditure to happen in the next 2 months or in the next 6 weeks. So I think we'll probably come in under that. But that's not we're not compromising things. It's just, I think people perhaps have been a little ambitious about how much things were going to cost. So I think we've got that under control. I think last time I came to the board, we presented our Go Live tracker, which is on the agenda. That showed a lot of red issues. We've been working very hard on that, but it does change on a daily basis. So there are still some, I know in the report you've got, it looks all green. There are some that are red, but they are all for legitimate reasons. I'll give you an example. We had intended to do an exercise for emergency management purposes during April. That hasn't happened because of the cyclone, so that's kind of delayed things, deferred it. It will happen before the 30th of June so that we can prove that everything's in place. And the other items that we've identified, again, as I said, we're updating it constantly. I'm confident that those things will also be addressed. I think the overall picture I'm going to present to you, Mr. Chair, is that on the 1st of July, IAWAI will be operational. Things will work. It'll be behind the scenes where there are things that we need to tidy up afterwards. That will be the things that will be left to be done. One of the things that Peter has challenged me with is to come up with a list of, not a list, but some detail around what will not be done by the 1st of July. So we're working on that and developing a list just to make sure we've got everything in hand. And that's really my summary, Mr. Chair. So happy to take any questions on it.
Thanks, Gavin. The first point you covered on the payroll, that was probably the biggest red flag for Go Live.
Yep.
So I think to have had that successful upgrade, that's a big relief, to be honest, because that was one of the biggest risks we were facing. So
Yes.
very pleased about that. Any questions from Dave?
If I just take that one step further, I mean, the wonderful thing about Hamilton having gone live with their version of it is it now means that whether or not the IAWAI version is ready to go, we can be 100% confident that we can continue to pay everybody. So from that point of view, there's no big mess. Yep.
Dave or Tim?
If I can recall a couple of months back, there was some talk about legal costs.
There was an issue, probably particularly in going forward on the reserve land. So if we succeed in either having a private member's bill or get the government to effectively take it on board as part of an enabling legislation going forward, that would fall for the future.
Yes.
Were there any other costs in the issues in the current year around legal costs?
Look, legal costs have been high because we are charting new territory here. We're dealing with a new piece of legislation and we've had to address that. Again, that's all being factored into our budget and we are still confident we'll be at least $800,000 under the budget that we have. Just on that issue you raised, Mr. Chair, around the local bill. So where we got to was very low chance of being able to get some legislation through in this term of Parliament. So what we're doing is we are getting to the point where we have clearly defined what the
What you need
issue
to
we
do,
would be going forward with,
yeah.
and then that can be picked up at
outside
a
of
subsequent
Parliament
time.
if we can get.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be some support now from DIA,
Yeah.
Realising it's actually
And I know
a bigger
that,
problem.
and I'm sure Peter
Yeah.
got this, that Water New Zealand have written to all water organisations asking who's got problems with reserve land, which I think is helpful
Yes.
to that very end.
And the Minister of Conservation has asked for a meeting and briefing on the issue. It's likely that the Chief Executive of Water New Zealand and myself will go and do that as part of the trying to escalate this to resolution. Since there are enormous implications for the Department of Conservation and their resourcing if they've got to be across the middle of every one of the Reserves Act changes that this triggers. So he has a sound reason to want to be helpful.
Cool. That's great. Any other issues with Gavin's report?
A few points if I can.
Go for it.
Kevin, thank you. Thanks for the report. Thank you very much. There's a comment in there about new bylaws and understanding what new bylaws are, clarification, new legislation with respect to bylaws. Is there anything that needs to be, we need a bit more colour around that today, or that'll come through in due course?
It's
That's
probably
what you
just
were
worth
talking about?
explaining, Gavin, because we've had a whole work stream around this, haven't we?
Yes. So what we were thinking originally was the opportunity would be there for IAWAI to have the bylaws, but the bylaws actually need to remain with the council, but IAWAI will be able to administer and implement the bylaws. Okay, so that's really the basis of how we would go forward.
So the key piece here is we need to review the water supply and wastewater trade waste bylaws of both councils. The intent is to get to run a single review process which reviews the bylaws for both councils on a consistent basis. We will run that and propose the bylaws to the councils. The councils will then need to complete the process to adopt. There are some resourcing questions on the council side of that to make sure that they've provided sufficient in their budgets for the next year to do their side of that process. The outcome that we are seeking is to, in essence, have one set of rules that apply across the whole of our area for water supply and wastewater, so that we can benefit from all of the operational efficiencies that come with a standard way of operating.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I think if I can, point 6, part C is doing yourselves a bit of a disservice saying reassessing minimum viable product. I think you've done a fantastic transition, not a minimum viable product, but just as an observation. If I can encourage Peter, you and clearly through the chair, that the still to do stuff that was being talked about is to build that into the rhythm, and reflecting again that there'll be a new board, and sometimes people start and go, well, why wasn't that done? So which would be really unkind if people did do that. I think, but yeah, to not go. We've all seen where there's been a project and you come to the end and then people go, well, that was that. Now we're just business as usual. Well, this is far from that. So we're completely supportive of building ongoing improvement and efficiencies and actually providing some OPEX budget to actually enable all that stuff into the future to continue to build a complete and better IAWAI. So, and not to lose, I know it won't, but not to lose sight of that. There was one at risk that I was interested in, it might now have changed, which was, it looked like IAWAI's immigration status and for transitioning employment agreements. And there's been a bit of publicity about those sorts of things and being able to be registered to get skills from migrants, etc. So is there any update we need on that?
We are now an accredited employer. So the one employee who couldn't transfer until we were because of his visa status has now been able to be transferred, is my understanding. And being an accredited employer means that we can take advantage of all of those skilled migrant things. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks for that. Two final points, if I can. I was talking to Gillian Blythe, and this probably doesn't fit in here, but nevertheless, talking to Gillian as Chief Executive of Water New Zealand about something else, and raised about Te Mata Arawai and immediate boil water notices in light of what happened in Auckland, where science, I think, would say that it's 99.9999% likely it was a sampling error, and that's where it came out, and yet 78,000 people and businesses were put on an immediate boil water notice in the disruption. She said that she's had a number of those comments that it needs to be more nuanced from Te Mata Arawai, and she was meeting with Alan Pragnell, the Chief Executive, it was either yesterday or today, to discuss that exact issue. So just sharing that information really with you, that I think it's ludicrous. And, you know, if you're in a cafe and all of a sudden there's a boil water notice for the next 3 days, and but if there's no chlorine, or, you know, it should be more nuanced, not just E. coli or nothing else. So, and we had Hamilton
ourselves, didn't we?
Exactly, with the same issue. And so anyway, and then finally, and I hope I don't make life harder for you, Peter, I think the excellent progress from the team is just first class. So if I can endorse that, the work that we've seen occur over the last 10 months has been nothing short of fantastic from my perspective. So huge congratulations to everybody involved. So thank you so much.
It's probably worth mentioning at this point, we've mentioned Water New Zealand a couple of times. They are now in the process of creating a series of networks, aren't they? They've got an established Chief Executives network. They've created a Chairs network. I think there are a number of specialist networks, finance and other ones that are starting, which is really good. And I think the example you gave, Peter, earlier of the Reserves Act and the opportunity for some legislative tidy up in the spirit of the water reforms, I think these groups can provide some opportunity to push that. And actually, that issue is another example. I think if you use those networks to take them forward, then that's quite powerful, isn't it? And I attended the first online Water Chairs network a few weeks back, which was very good. Jeff from Watercare was there, and he was pushing very hard that issue, but also the issue of reconsenting and the timeframes for reconsenting. We are spending colossal amounts of public money reconsenting things, and you do wonder whether those periods could be extended significantly and those costs could be significantly reduced, and we could spend that money on frontline activity, improving the quality of our water and improving the renewal rates and all that sort of stuff, because these are very big dollars. And we've got a number of reconsents actually ourselves. I mean, we're not particularly exposed as a water organisation, but we have some that are coming up, and they do have 6-figure sums and in some cases 7-figure sums attached to them. So It is big. Yeah.
Well, up north, their first 10-year plan, they put $47 million in for
Provision.
10 years for reconsenting, and not 1 cent of that was for improving outcomes or doing any work whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I remember the minister wasn't that happy with me, but I'm happy to say it publicly. He said, well, why don't Waka Kotahi reconsent the Auckland Harbour Bridge and the viaduct and Newmarket Viaduct? And he said, well, that would just be stupid. And I go, well, I got to reconsent Mangere. It's sewerage for 1.2 million people. Why don't we just let that lapse? And he wasn't too impressed about that, quite frankly. I said, well, it's critical infrastructure in the public good. Why is it reconsented ever? Yeah. Once you get the consent, why can't you use it? Make you reach the standards. But nevertheless, I think there's still quite some political gain to be made through Water
That's
New
the
Zealand.
sort of conversation, I think, where you've got a group of chairs or chief executives
100%.
meeting the minister directly saying,
Just a
Yeah.
complete waste of money.
Yeah.
But anyway.
My sense is we need to be careful to differentiate, I suppose, between the ability to discharge and the location of a discharge from the quality of a discharge, and certainly in terms of our responsibilities under Te Ture Whaimana, make it clear, since in particular this is in the public domain, there's nothing in what we've just discussed that would suggest or imply that we expect to be able to discharge to low standards in perpetuity.
Okay. Did you want to come in, Andrew? Or?
Just at the risk of going
I could tell from your eyebrows you wanted to say something.
just a comment in relation to the sampling and analysis work through Te Mata IAWAI. IAWAI senior staff are working with Watercare and Wellington Water staff on a common response to some of those matters. So I think the addition of chair or CE level engagement would only support that.
helpful.
Yeah.
In fairness, on that particular incident we had, our staff very much wanted to take a proactive approach. We did. So I don't think anyone's on that issue challenging Te Mata IAWAI, but clearly in Auckland's case, there was a different exchange between the two parties, which isn't our issue. All right, very good wide-ranging discussion. We note Gavin's report. Thank you. We do have a report in public excluded, so Gavin will be staying for that. May I introduce Megan as well, who's with us from Waikato District. You know pretty much everyone around the table, but and will know Tim, I'm guessing, but might not know Dave. So Megan is the infrastructure. Oh yeah, you would know from a previous life. Yeah, of course. But anyway, welcome. We now move on to the big report of this board meeting, which is the water services strategy, and I'll pass over to Peter and to Vishal.
I'm going to pass over to Vishal quite quickly, but before I do that, I just wanted to acknowledge the work that he has done in getting us to this point, and for Waikato District's willingness to second him to IAWAI to do that, and note that Vishal's going back. I'm sure he's going back to an organisation that's not quite the same as the one that he left, but really important to recognise his contribution. The report is long and reflects the seriousness, I suppose, that we've taken the response to submissions, but very happy to pass to Vishal.
Kia ora, Peter, kia ora, Chair, and Atamari, members of the board and staff. So look, we received 125 submissions, and I will take the report and all the associated attachments, including the fees and charges schedule, the insights provided, and the amendments to the waiver policy as read. And there's also the significance engagement policy attached to the report. But considering the significance of the report, I'll just provide a summary of the salient points, just for the benefit of the board, staff, and the public. Generally, the feedback that we've received from the submitters, including the shareholding councils and Waikato Tainui, is very supportive of the strategy. The key themes arising from the general feedback included a focus on affordability, broad support for IAWAI's reduced proposed increases in water charges, but a strong desire for IAWAI to keep water and wastewater charges affordable over a period of time. And some have stressed the importance of the price harmonization work between WDC and HCC to ensure that happens over subsequent iterations of the strategy. With regards to the capital delivery program, general support for it, with the submitters seeking clarification on prioritization, staging, as well as pace of delivery, and some concerns raised about the potential implications of a slowdown of growth for delivery of the CWP, but that's raised in terms of the wider economic environment. And then quite a few submissions made recommendations or alluded to strong expectations that the services IAWAI provides will need to ensure that we continue to protect the environment and be resilient to future shocks and stresses. And then strong support for the principle that growth pays for growth. And for the introduction of the water and wastewater growth charges. But quite a few submitters have raised concerns regarding the timing of implementation, the calculation methodology, as well as some developers wanting more certainty regarding the growth charges that has been proposed. Other matters raised through the general feedback included general support for the Southern Wastewater Treatment Plant, but quite a few submitters have expressed concerns about its location, but that sits outside of the strategy, although the Southern Wastewater Treatment Plant is a capital work program in the strategy, but the location will be dealt with separately outside of this. Just in terms of some of the key quantitative feedback from the submitters, 78% of responders either support or partially support the growth pays for growth approach, including the use of water and wastewater growth charges. 67% of respondents either support or partially support using half a household equivalent unit for secondary dwellings. 61% of respondents either support or partially support the proposed significance engagement policy, and 67% either support or partially support the proposed waiver policy. So, Chair, staff have considered all the feedback, and you will see from the strategic insight reports provided, we've done a thorough assessment of all the submissions. And whilst the strategy is generally supported, staff have made some recommendations for the board to consider. These include making some amendments to the strategy insofar as environmental outcomes are concerned, just putting a more explicit reference to Te Mana o Te Wai to reflect IAWAI's acknowledgement and commitment to national freshwater standards, and also our relationship with Waikato Waters as well, which their guiding principle is Te Mana o Te Wai. Also, an explicit reference to Te Mana o Te Moana, which to recognize that IAWAI's operations have implications for the health and well-being of the marine environment as well. And then, in addition, we are also recommending, in response to the submissions, the removal of the proposed non-residential growth charge from the this iteration of the strategy, to allow for further consideration of it through WSS 2. And Chair, there is a paper in the agenda pack which talks about the operation of the growth charges, which follows this particular agenda item. And we're also recommending that as far as the residential growth charge is concerned, that a waiver be applied for new Papakainga developments for 2026, 2027. Chair, I'll take all the recommendations in the report as read, and for you to make a determination on. But before I hand back to Peter, if he has anything else to add, I'd just like to acknowledge the board's guidance through the development of the strategy, as well as to staff, and in particular the HCSC finance team, Gary, Nikita, and Megan, and the WDC finance team as well, for their contribution through of the strategy. Kia ora, Chair.
Thanks, Vishal. Just a couple of things to note. Following decisions today, the final water services strategy and all of the financials that go with it will come back to you for approval, and the resolutions that actually set the fees and charges and so on, so that there's another body of documents that will have to come back to you for that purpose. And secondly, in terms of the financials, We're working our way through the last generation of shifts to the Capital Works program in relation to work in progress this year and what that needs to look like. That will be on the basis of current forecasts, so hopefully that will be straightforward. And there will be a revised set of financials that reflect the final view of the shared services arrangement between the councils and so on. So there will be some shifts in the detail, but not in the substance of the financials for the water services strategy.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Vishal. I mean, first of all, just to say a big thank you to you, Vishal, and the whole extended team on the strategy. I think I'm correct in saying we've got 3 entities going live with water services strategies this year in New Zealand. We're the first of the ranks, so it's a real achievement to get something put together at short notice, and it's a very high quality document and a high quality strategy that's got broad support. So I think we're in a really good place. Unlike the previous reports, we've got some real decisions today, as Peter said, which we can, after we've had any answers to questions and any debate, we can run through each of them separately. And then following those decisions, as Peter said, in the June board meeting, we will formally adopt the water services strategy. So that's the process we're going through. Given that Vishal did mention the Southern Wastewater Treatment Plant in dispatches too, it's also worth noting that we will have a separate report on the Southern Wastewater Treatment Plant, which will cover things like location and how we approach consenting and a number of other matters as well, which are not water services strategy issues, but are, of course, very relevant to it. With that in mind, Dave and Tim, any issues that you wish to raise? Tim.
Thank you, Vishal, for your report and your work on this. I do want to acknowledge Vishal for his attendance at a number of our community hui and the hui that we had with our iwi and hapu and marae reps last year as well, Vishal. And I think they'll be pretty happy with what's come back out of this process. In terms of the amounts of submissions for the water services strategy, how does that bode compared to other similar strategies that you've been involved in with council, numbers-wise?
Through you, Chair. So, look, with regards to like an LTP process, it's relatively low. And I guess in terms of other strategies, which are not as big as LTP, it's on par with some of the number of submissions we do usually get. Bear in mind, this is across 2 councils, so it's quite low by comparison. But hopefully, through WSS2, we'll be able to have a more in-depth engagement and consultation process. We did have several, as contained in the report, several sessions, and as you've alluded, with several stakeholders as well, which was very good. But yeah, hopefully, look, I mean, I guess it does not mean that the fact that we didn't have a high number of submissions, people are, not happy. Could be that they're comfortable, but yeah, there will be an opportunity to have more engagement over the next few months on WSS2.
And we also had drop-in sessions as well that people could provide comments on. That's my understanding.
Absolutely,
well.
yeah, and we've made it very clear that this is a partnership approach, and the conversations will continue. So this is not the end of it.
I mean, I think, Tim, it wouldn't be unusual to have over 1,000 responses to a local authority LTP, so it is quite low. I think we need to perhaps reflect on that when we do water services strategy 2 and look at what we can do to try and widen it. But it is challenging. You're competing for space with the public, and they've got lots of other issues on their mind. Peter,
so if I put it in context, when we designed the consultation and engagement process, we were working on the assumption that both councils would consult on an annual plan. and the intention was to piggyback off what they were doing. Both councils then decided not to consult on their annual plan, so we were left there on our own. The conclusion we reached was, rather than spend an awful lot of time on trying to drive a bigger, deeper, richer engagement for this water services strategy, we would do that next year. There are a number of far bigger, more fundamental questions we will need to engage with our communities on next year, including price pathway, how they charge, how we intend to move away from capital value towards other charges, and so on. So yes, next year the intent will be a far more engaging process that will need to take place over quite a long period of time as we identify the issues, socialise them, start to talk about solutions and so on. And all of that will happen in the context also of the campaign that's designed to introduce IAWAI to our customers so they understand who we are and what we do. And that's about what's in the last stages of design, and we'll start in June to roll out so that we've got a better appreciation of who we are before they get their first bill from us.
And I just wanted to say the recommendation for the inclusion of Te Mana o Te Moana, I think that was great.
Yeah.
It was oversight on my behalf.
And
really,
that's based on feedback we got from Toitu Marae, especially from coastal iwi. So yeah.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you for the report, and we can add my congratulations on the process that we've run. If people don't submit, then they don't submit. But there seem to have been opportunities, albeit that people might not have really known who IAWAI were and what this was about. So, but yeah, fantastic and great to see actually some change come through in our water services strategy. And I just want to acknowledge that because of the consultation, we've made change and reflected that we've got to, which I think is great. A few points, because this is really where everything almost everything that's been done to date comes together into the price and the charges and the services and the capital programs. So, really momentous, maybe not the final momentous because we're not quite adopting it yet, but getting very close. So a really momentous occasion. Few points. Previous price, and we talked about that. I think I would encourage us not to lose sight of what would have been the price to people when things actually do get announced in due course and how much was saved. And note Minister Brown, so not Mayor Brown, but Minister Brown was very happy up north when Watercare's financial independence was put forward, that because of the work that people did, $885 million was saved over 4 years for Aucklanders, which was actually a real number that independence not have occurred, that water charges would have been $885 million higher to Aucklanders over just 4 years. So, with the work that you've done and the consultation and the water service strategy is actually saving real dollars for people in Waikato District and Hamilton City. So, I'd encourage us not to lose sight of that. I do think, and also I wouldn't lose the fact that 2/3 of our capex is going to be growth capex. So I think in round numbers, it's 2 billion of the 3 billion is actually about growth. And I think in the water service strategy, it references the 3 billion, but I would encourage us to continue to say how significant the growth capex component is for us at IAWAI, because it could easily be other water entities around New Zealand where it's not very large, actually, the growth capex, but this is a real issue that you've had to grapple with through the process, and that we've had to grapple with is that, how do you get to growth paying for growth when it's actually such a large amount? And then finally, I'm not sure we've actually captured it quite correctly on page 17, where we put that we're excluding growth charges that don't apply for non-residential. I think what the deliberations are about is going, we're not ready to introduce it, but we're not excluding that. And actually, there are continued bespoke arrangements with commercial developers so that growth can pay for growth. And so sort of on plain reading of it, it looks like commercial growth charges have been are out, but that actually isn't quite the case. There are bespoke arrangements that continue to be applied. And, so if someone was just reading this cold, then they might go, oh, so residents have to, but commercial don't. And that isn't quite right. And actually, I know that the executive and the team are going, we're still engaging with developers and we're still developing it. So I would encourage us to make sure we capture whilst we're not able to put a charge on the table quite yet. That is not forgotten about, and there's no free kicks, and I know the team are very, very conscious of that. It's just very complicated, and so so as I say, that is the outcome, excluding it, but I think that doesn't quite represent the position that you've got to and are representing. That's all. So
Of course, we have a business rate differential for wastewater.
Exactly.
Well.
And so whether, it could be worthwhile including all that for completeness, because someone at some point will grab, we'll get this and then go, well, that's your whole strategy. And so, just raising that. But finishing where I started, I think fantastic work and congratulations, and good on you, Vishal, for reflecting that. But you're also the lead point. So, just take sometimes take the compliment. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And just reflecting on that first point about Auckland, we have a similar story here, don't we? Because rather than comparing it with last year's increase, if you compare it with the planned inherited forecast we had from the two councils, it is referenced in the paper. There was an average increase of 22% across both councils, and we're less than half that, which is real progress. We want to do better, but it's real progress. And it shows that we're taking the affordability issue, which has been raised by the public, very seriously. Okay, is it worth us now going through, I'll try and group the recommendations as appropriate. So I'm suggesting that if we look at the recommendations on page 17, we first of all look at A and B together, if that's okay. Are you happy to support A and B?
I am, except for the point about excluding wastewater, water supply and wastewater charges, if you like, because if I articulated it right, Kevin, I'm saying that's the outcome, but I don't think that's quite the, what we were doing in terms of.
So what would you suggest in terms of alternative wording to defer?
Deferring,
consideration.
Yeah.
Continue to develop.
Yeah.
And continue to apply bespoke arrangements to commercial developments over the next 12 months, or some words like that.
I was thinking something along the line of review water supply and wastewater growth charges for non-residential development for consideration and water strategy too.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Happy to. Right. So we've got a consensus on A and B with that minor amendment to the final bullet point. And then probably C and D together. Are we comfortable to confirm that we do want to proceed with the residential growth levy as proposed in C and D for the full household equivalent and the half household equivalent? Okay?
Yes.
Yep.
And that actually it's a key part of keeping charges as low as we
residential.
can for current residents. So not just, we're not just banging another charge on chair.
And then probably,
so yes.
Yeah, okay. And then moving on to E, That's a reprise of the discussion we just had. We probably need to make the wording consistent with the amendment you've just suggested. So on that basis, we'll support E.
Yes.
And then F, we've got again, it's a temporary growth waiver on Papakayanga housing, pending further work on how we deal with that more generally across Consenting, isn't it?
And that discussion needs to go to, and how do marae pay for water and wastewater, and how does that work?
Yeah.
And equally for a number of marae, that very rapidly becomes a discussion about, well, that they are not connected, but actually it's only just down the road, and what does that look like? So what we're anticipating is a number of marae engagements over the next 12 months that need to start with a relationship and then move into, and how does this work, and how do we address the issues that they have?
Right.
Content,
Yes.
and then probably G to L together. These are in the main consequential effects of what's gone earlier. Obviously, there's a bit of further work on the capital program that you're still doing, but I think you're pretty much there now, given what you said orally earlier, Peter. But are Tim and Dave prepared to support G to L? Or are there any issues there?
No issue, full
Okay.
support.
Cool. So that's therefore we've supported all the amendments with those amendments to two areas of wording, and we look forward to seeing this in its revised form for final sign-off in early June. Thanks very much, everyone. Great work. So if we now move on, and again, this is a consequential area, but I think it is important formally for the record that we do set out how we are handling the growth charge in detail, which is the purpose of this report. Peter, do you want to introduce this?
Thanks. So I appreciate that, as the chair has said, this is repetitive. In essence, you've just made the real decision to proceed. This fills in the background and how they will be administered. I don't know that this needs a lot of debate or consideration. Yeah. It's more about making sure that we've got the basis of how it will actually work clearly recorded and resolutions to match.
So we've obviously had the discussion around both areas. Are there any further comments or questions that Dave or Tim have?
I guess mine's the same thing as you give me another opportunity.
Go for it.
On page 111, section 2, part B, just in keeping with that previous discussion, I'd love that to be a little expanded.
Yes,
Peter,
I'll have the earlier discussion.
Yeah, so, you know, it's not just inclusion in the next review. We're actually over the next 12 months also going to be
we're going to do this.
Having
we're working out
charges
how
for-
we do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know, developers might read that and go, oh, there's nothing for the next 12 months. Well, that actually isn't the reality. You know, if they come with a big proposal, it's like,
Yeah.
well, how are you going to pay for it, developer? And you said, oh, blah, blah. So for completeness, just like, so,
Yes.
but otherwise.
So we'll
nothing to
use
add.
similar wording to what we covered earlier. Yeah.
Well, and even if there is an intent to, you know, Andrew very eloquently talks about how we work with developers to agree costs, and Keith has as well in WDC, where there's been bespoke commercial arrangements for people who want to do developments, and you know that growth is paying for growth. So if there was a couple of sentences or a sentence that reflects the ongoing reality, then I'd encourage us to at least think about that going in there. But
Cool.
Otherwise, thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Comfortable on that basis, Tim? Yeah, signed off. Okay, let's move on to conflict of interest management. Obviously, we've got our own declarations up to date in the board papers on the record. Natasha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, IAWAI does have a practice already for declaring and managing interests. We have asked you as directors to routinely declare any interests, including at meetings and ahead of your appointments. And as we go, and we have been keeping a record of those. But as the paper notes, conflicts of interest are unavoidable, and we operate in a small and highly interconnected sector. And so the issue is not really whether the interest exists, but how we are identifying, assessing, and managing those. So this policy is intended to move us away from relying on the existing practice to putting in place a formal documented policy in place. It doesn't introduce a new approach, it rather formalises what we already do. And so that includes the ongoing disclosure of your interests, regular declarations against any agenda items, and then a proportionate risk-based management approach to dealing with those. So the recommendation is that you approve the policy, but welcome any questions you may have.
So any questions from Tim or Dave?
I did have one, but not about the policy actually, and I think it was good practice that, and I note that it was consulted with WDC and Hamilton City. It's noted in the background paper. And I just wonder if the policy should be the IAWAI Board of Directors, and then maybe in brackets in consultation with the shareholders forum, because otherwise it seems like the board is setting our own policy about ourselves, and in a lot of ways that's appropriate, but actually we do have a shareholders forum, and whether it's when it's reviewed that it should be, there should be in consultation with them. We've got to decide, but whether that should be noted going forward, that's all.
Well, funnily enough, we have a meeting of the forum tomorrow, and we do have this item on the agenda.
So the idea would be that the policy is owned by the board,
Yes.
And that the board approves that formally.
Yes.
We are discussing, as Kevin mentioned, the policy with the IAWAI forum tomorrow. That wasn't intended for their approval, but it was intended to ensure that they were comfortable with the approach that the board intends to take.
Yes. And I just wonder if that should be noted for ongoingness actually in the policy.
Sure.
And
of course,
that's a great process.
There continues to be a process with the forum for
Yes.
any conflicts that would be assessed as higher risk,
Yes.
to ensure that they are comfortable going forward.
So if there was a comment in there in the principle section of the actual policy, which I don't think I saw, then
Sure, I can work out how to.
then that would be perfect from
I think
my perspective, because if I took the policy literally, which unfortunately I have a bit of a habit of doing, that going forward when this gets reviewed, there is no mention of need to consult or the shareholders forum or anything else. So I know that would be our intention, but the policy doesn't actually say that. And so different people into the future could go, why are we doing that? Policy doesn't say we have to, we're not going to, but that isn't the intent, I don't think.
Sure, happy to.
I think it definitely isn't the intent, because we're doing it tomorrow. Look, I think here it's the case of it is the board's job to set this. It is important that we're open and transparent, and it is important that we do consult with our shareholders. I think that's the right balance, but we don't want our shareholders, no disrespect to them, micromanaging what we do on the board either. So it's striking the right balance here, really. Tim, do you want to come in?
And just following up on that one, Kevin, so the policy will be going in front of the shareholders forum. They will review it, and they may have feedback.
Yeah.
And what would be the process?
We would raise that.
The intention is that it is going to the forum for awareness and for comfort rather than for specific feedback, given it's a board-owned policy. But in saying that, if the forum does have feedback, we could bring that back to the board for their consideration.
I mean, at the end of the day, if the shareholders forum ain't happy with the board, they can remove the board.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
but again, in line with it, it's about striking the right balance. We're not intentionally going there asking for feedback, because you're actually inviting them then to do your job. The issue, but we do want to make sure that they're comfortable, that we've got the right balance on this, and we will raise it.
I guess what I was coming
It's
from
just
is
a-
as
it's
soon
a
as you put
nuance.
something in front of someone, they're going to give you feedback.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Well, it'll be a public policy, so I think, and I take your points,
Yeah.
Kevin. You've well made. Now, and Natasha as well, and yeah, but it'll be a public policy, and so better to ask for and tell them and share. So
Yeah. We're sort of not asking for permission, but we're
No.
being open,
yeah,
if that
well,
makes
which
sense.
we need. Yes. Yeah, I got it.
And the purpose really for the session with the IAWAI Forum is to provide assurances to them that we are managing conflicts transparently in line with expectations that they have set.
Okay. All right. That's very well articulated. So, in hindsight to my earlier comments, if Natasha and Kevin are comfortable with the policy without having to add something about shareholder forum in light of this discussion, I'm comfortable.
I
with
think we're
whichever,
doing it.
whichever
aren't we?
way you
We're doing it.
want to go with the wording.
If they say tomorrow we're not comfortable with the process, then we would come back to that we don't have the sufficient assurances that you're managing, then that would be a different conversation.
Yeah, all good. Happy with as it is, or if you reckon there should be any adjustments.
And in this context, the policy sets out a process for engagement with the forum in the event that someone is considering a new appointment that would or could create a significant conflict. So it's important that we test that with them, and that's designed to ensure that if someone's going to do something that has the potential to create a significant conflict, we respect the forum's role in appointing directors in the first place, because their appointments process should be designed to preclude appointments that would create impossible conflicts from the beginning.
Thank you. Well said.
Okay. This is a decision for us to adopt. Do we adopt?
Yes.
Adopted.
Thank you.
Okay. Alternate representation on the Future-Proof Implementation Committee. I'm the identified member. In practice, it's difficult for me to attend. I did attend it pre-Christmas, but I think in non-executive capacity, that's quite tricky. So the suggestion is that Peter be formally appointed as my alternate. Are you happy with that? Yeah.
Yes. No questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
I'll interpret that as Dave does not want to go.
That's not maybe true.
Appointment of account owners and signing authority. This is effectively approving Peter and Nathan to sign things off. Again, I would assume that's
Supportive. I just wonder if on page 136, whether it says approved by Peter, whether it's actually approved by the board. It's prepared and recommended by Natasha, Peter, Nathan, but the board is actually approving this.
The board is approving the recommendations. Peter's approved the paper be put into the
I see.
agenda.
Okay. Oh, well, on that basis, yes, completely. Yep.
okay. Right. And we have now completed the public part of this agenda. So we have a resolution to exclude the public to deal with a few confidential items. Do I have support from Tim and from Dave? Thank you. That closes the public part of this agenda. I suggest we have a short break of 10 minutes maybe, and then we reconvene to deal with the private section. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wonder whether we could get coffees or something. There is a place here, isn't there?